Roll. Doc, Alan, Lindeman. Doc, what's going on, man? How are you?
We're doing very well here, Neil. And you?
All right. And today's topic is what is Yersinia pestis? What is the
Well,
common name for Yersinia pestis?
it's the plague. And years ago back in the 14th century, it was the Black Plague.
Okay, I would not have known that, so I'm never going to use it as Yersinia pestis again. Is Yersinia pestis serious?
Oh, very, very serious. Uh, it's most often, I mean, if it's not treated, it's probably fatal. Depending on what kind you have, if you have the ones in the lung, it's fatal 100% of the time. So it's serious business.
Okay, very serious. So what should I be concerned if someone brings up Yersinia pestis?
Let me say this. It's okay to talk about it, but you sure don't want to have it.
All right. Okay. So it's basically, is it a serious? It is. That's
Yep.
the answer. Okay. What is Yersinia pestis most commonly found?
Well, it's in the Western United States, Utah, Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, California, and it's found among wild rodents and other animals. As a matter of fact, mammals. So, yeah, it can be in quite a few places.
Okay. All right. So is that and that's probably next to hantavirus. Um,
In
okay.
the same states.
Can plague be cured?
Yes, that's the good thing about having the plague. It's bacterium, and the plague can be cured with antibiotics, but treatment needs to be done right away. No grass can grow under your feet.
You can't have any, the grass is not greener on the other side. I got it for sure. Uh, how do humans become infected with the plague?
Well, the plague is transmitted by animals. Actually, it's the bite of infected ticks that are the rodent flea. That's the big way, but you can also get it by handling an infected animal, even including rabbits. Some people, when they go camping, they'll catch a rabbit and they'll skin it and eat it. You can get the plague by doing that. Everybody's heard of the plague in Europe during the Middle Ages, but it killed between 30 and 50% of all the people in Europe in the Middle Ages.
Oh my goodness. That so we don't want to go back to the Middle Ages because of the plague, that's for sure. All right. All right. Okay. So we talked about can there be how can a human get infected? We talked about that. Is the plague common today?
Well, thank goodness it is rare, but it does persist in rural areas in Western United States and certain areas of Africa and Asia.
How many kinds of plague are there?
There are three kinds. There's bubonic, septic, and pneumonic. Now, bubonic is that's what we hear about a lot. It has to do with lymph node swelling, and they swell up and they explode and they spew pus out. And the other one that's a little more trouble is septic, where you can lose your fingers, hands, toes, feet, and nose and ears. The incubation period is relatively rare, but we figure it's 2 to 8 days probably. And the third one is pneumonic or lung plague. This is the one that is absolutely lethal. It's 100% lethal if it's not treated. And even then, it has a mortality rate of about 10%. So it is the most serious form and it can be spread. This is the only one that can be spread person to person. The incubation period can be as short as 1 day.
Okay, well, okay, so I'm very so here's my question, Doc. Well, seriously, has there been cases of bubonic plague, septic plague, or pneumonic plague in this year?
We don't have anything registered for this year, but we have had a couple years in the last decade when we have not only had large numbers, I shouldn't say large, like 20 or so, not like 2,000, but there have been deaths associated in those years, and we'll get to that further down.
That's crazy. So there have been, so I'm just intriguing, but see, I'm already thinking about that question. So when should you call the doctor?
Well, in the first place, plague is serious, as we've said. So if you have any of the symptoms that you are described above, and if you're living in these places or working with, you've been exposed to mice or any of these little critters, rodents, even a rabbit, you need to tell the doctor because they need to be focused on getting a diagnosis and a treatment. And don't wait for the diagnostic things to come back. Treatment needs to start right away.
What are the laboratory tests that can be ordered?
Well, the easiest and best and first one is blood testing. That's very commonly done and it's easily done. And you can, of course, if you want to, biopsy a bubo, not a boo-boo, a bubo. That's a node, a swollen node.
What treatment is recommended?
Well, there are, like I said, good treatments. The best one that we have is gentamicin. So, by all means, get started on IV gentamicin. Again, treatment needs to be fast, especially if you're living in one of those four states that we talked about before.
Those four states we got to watch out for.
Yep.
I mean, because it's not a good thing. And in one of those four states, the same thing where you get mice, right?
Yep, exactly. It's Utah, Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico. And I've got nothing against those states. It's just that that's where you're going to find the most plague.
Is there a plague vaccine available?
Nope, there used to be, but I think there was more trouble from the vaccine than from the plague. There's presently no vaccine available in the United States, but I hear that there are new vaccines available, and again, I don't know when or what kind of dangers they're going to have, but I guess they are working on something.
What are some tips for prevention?
Well, reduce rodent habitat. And again, the habitat for plague, is greater than for hantavirus. So it can be a mouse, it can be a rat, it can be a rabbit, and God only knows what else. Then wear gloves when handling or skinning potentially infected animals, like rabbits. Use a personal repellent. Keep the fleas off of you. And this is a good one. If your cats and dogs are running around, don't sleep with them.
Okay. When did plague first show up in the United States?
Well, that was introduced in about 1900 from a rat-infested steamships that sailed from affected areas. The last epidemic plague that occurred in the United States was in Los Angeles, 1924 and 1925. And then, you've heard the story of the country mouse and the city mouse. Well, the city mice got over it and the country mice got it. So now we're still, and it has reoccurred in the years 2006 and 2015.
And there are mice right now available at 133 Aileen Drive. What are the antibiotics for, and that's in Pittsburgh, PA 15215. What are the antibiotics for the treatment of the plague?
My favorite is gentamicin. It's cheap, old, good, effective, and safe. Streptomycin is also commonly recommended, but we don't have that very much here, and it has a side effect profile. Others include the ciprofloxacin, levofloxacin, moxifloxacin, chloramphenicol, and if you have just bubonic plague, Doxycycline is a good one.
All right. So I will definitely think that if we ever have the plague, what is the mortality rate from the plague?
Well, untreated plague ranges 66 to 93%, and for the pneumonia plague, it's 100%.
Do you predict that there's going to be a plague in the next
Well,
5 years?
that's a good question. I don't think we're ever going to be completely done with this, Neil. I'm not sure we're going to have anything like the plague, but I think we're going to see a redo of the years like 2006 and 2015. It's going to come back. It's not going to be, like I said, I don't think we're going to see um, 4,000 cases, but I think we will see upticks from time to time.
Last question from our audience. Are dogs and cats only carriers or are they susceptible to the plague?
That's a really good question. And I would say that, you know, since dogs and cats are not only mammals, but they're animals too, I would say that you could, in theory, get yourself exposed. That's one of the reasons we recommend if you have a cat or a dog that's running around, you shouldn't sleep with them.
Running around meaning outside?
Yeah, running around outside.
You shouldn't. I sleep with my dog all the time.
Does your dog run around?
Running outside? Just
Yeah.
outside.
Well, you're not probably going to have a lot of Yersinia in Cleveland.
Right. But the plague was in Pittsburgh. All right. I appreciate it, Doc. All right. Go to ruraldocallen.com and pick up Pregnancy Your Way. Available today on Amazon. Thanks, Doc.
Thank you, Neil.
All right. That was the Rural Doc Allen podcast, guys. Take care.